You know, I mean, you're a giving person. You'll find a way to give back to humanity as a whole.
Yeah,
So,
I
you
feel
know,
like it.
if I have the time,
If I'm not taking a
I've got
nap or something.
I've got enough to do.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, a podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I'm Erin Green.
How are you, Aaron Green?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
Yeah, just
Good.
hanging out today.
Hanging out,
Yeah,
recording a podcast.
Yeah, watching my cat sleep, wishing maybe I was still sleeping, but
It's always a nap.
yeah, there is, ever since I started working full-time from home, one of the things Matt has encouraged me to do is take that afternoon nap.
Mm-hmm.
And he praises it like it's the best thing ever. He's like, man, when I was working from home, that afternoon power nap was like the best thing. I just drink a cup of coffee, go lay down for 20 minutes. And by the time I wake up, the caffeine hits and I'm ready to go. And I'm like, maybe I should just get more sleep at night.
Are you not a nap person?
I try. I actually became better at it when I was in like deep in Ironman training and just exhausted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually pretty bad about making the time to just intentionally lay down and even just have quiet time, like when you're in kindergarten and you
Right.
have quiet time. I'm pretty good, pretty bad, I should say, about carving that out in the afternoon, because
Sure.
in the afternoon I kind of get to like, oh, I want to finish all these things before the day is done. And anyway, it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So I'm not an awesome napper, but I
Not
try.
an awesome nap prioritizer.
How about you?
I like a good nap. I don't take them very often, and I wish I did more, because I feel like when I do, I get a lot more done on kind of the second half of the day.
Yeah.
If I can get like 15, 20 minutes or even 10, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, all right, ready to go. It's like just kind of restart. But I bet I don't take one nap a month, even. I wish I did more, but it just kind of doesn't work out.
We should do a sleep episode. I think we'll do that in the future.
We should. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about sleep.
This episode is not about sleep, you guys. Obviously it's Friday and we're thinking about sleep a lot, but
now, do you mean like talking about sleep, or just an episode where we just like sleep, like we just take a nap?
Oh yeah, and people listen to us snore into the mic or breathe heavily.
Yeah.
That sounds. Let us know if you want that episode, everyone.
Oh, or don't. If you're into that kind of thing, I don't know if you want us contacting us.
Well, you could nap today, right? Because you're flying solo, because the girls left to kind of escape the hurricane.
Right. Well,
scariness,
no,
right?
They're coming back a day early, so I've got to get things picked up and that kind of stuff.
Rally.
Yeah.
Put away all the Bachelor evidence.
Right. Yes. Yes. All the beer cans everywhere and cigarette butts and
right. Takeout containers.
Yeah. Yeah. No. We'll just kind of get things put back together. I got all the house unboarded yesterday and stuff, but just like, get the trampoline put back up and patio furniture back out and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys weren't hit worse. I feel terrible for the families who were, it was a pretty bad storm. So real scary stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting. Our first hurricane. So, I mean, I say it's our first hurricane, but we didn't have anything, basically nothing happened, but just the whole prep and kids leaving and just kind of, it was a weird thing. Like I just kept waiting on Wednesday night. Like I was just waiting for it, like when's it coming? When's it coming?
Yeah.
I'd go outside like every 20 minutes, out to the garage, and because the doors are all boarded up, and just like kind of see what the wind was like. And, and it just never picked up. It never picked up. And I stayed up late because I was like, I kind of want to experience a little bit, it's like this awesome force of nature. And I kind of wanted to be out and watch it come, and get inside before it was dangerous for sure, but just kind of experienced a little bit. And finally it was like 1:30 and I was like, all right, I'm so tired. I gotta go to bed. I don't think it's happening. I don't know what's going on here. So not that it was a letdown, but yeah.
No, it's always better to be fully prepared for those things and then have it be not
Yeah,
as big of a deal.
sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
But
good.
no, we're all good. We're all safe and no damage or anything really. So yeah, good stuff.
Excellent. Well, what's our topic today?
How to choose a fitness or nutritional professional or coach or a dietitian or a personal trainer. Just how to find, identify, and find a good coach in that kind of health realm. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Because I think it can be really tricky too. Because I think right now the health and fitness industry is just so rampant with,
Mm.
I mean, just it feels like everybody's a personal trainer or a health coach, or, and there's just so much of it right now. And I don't know that that's going to go away anytime soon. And there's a lot of, well, I guess it's judgmental, whatever. I don't care. There's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of
That is
people,
truth. That
there's
is
a
the
lot of
truth.
people doing it that should not be doing it. And it's, the bar for entry is really low, at least as far as like personal trainers and like nutritional coaches go. It's pretty easy to get certified. And yeah, I mean, people think, well, I lost weight. I got myself in good shape, so I can do it for anybody else. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, I did it this one time for me in a very specific situation. So now obviously I can work with anyone. And people think like, oh wow, they're lean, so they must be able to, they found the way to do it. So the bar for entry is just so incredibly low right now
Yeah.
that there's just a lot of garbage.
And you're right that I think because we're in the age of influencers on
Hmm.
social media,
Hmm.
that all of a sudden we have this whole population of people that can, um, share their personal experience or their personal journey and present it as a message of authority and
Hmm.
expertise.
Hmm.
And it's so hard for people to distinguish between the two. And I mean, I think we're going to start talking about credentials because I think that's a very logical place for
Hmm.
people to start, is really finding out where that person got their
Hmm.
education.
Hmm.
And just to preface this with, I don't think that, a specific training certificate or educational background is an absolute necessity,
Right.
because I've worked with a lot of experts that didn't go the traditional education route, but they
Hmm.
were self-studied in a way that they
Hmm.
not only had their personal experience and then their experience helping others, but they did a ton of reading, um, you know, a, just educating themselves from different sources instead of
Hmm.
just going on their own
Right.
experience.
Right. No, I would agree. And I think, I think speaking just in as a like on the personal trainer side of things, I think it's important someone gets certified, because I think that shows like I have a high level investment. I'm going to make a sacrifice financially and time wise, that kind of stuff. I could care less if they stay certified, like, because that means nothing really in the personal training industry. For most certifications, it's a way for them to kind of have like continue revenue from you, like, oh, you got to get
Yeah.
your CEUs, so pay for this $200 course from us. That really doesn't teach you much. I think I don't think someone has to get certified as a personal trainer to be qualified by any means, because I've known some people that are certified and they are very unqualified, you know.
Right.
But I think it's a good idea to just invest in that way and get, a lot of that knowledge. But honestly, what I learned from my certification almost 12 years ago now, compared to what I learned in the first maybe year or two of just coaching people, nothing, nothing. And I
Mm.
honestly felt incredibly unprepared to train to run a session after I got my certification.
Oh, really?
Oh, very.
Like, where
I
do
was
I
like,
start?
I have no idea how to do this.
Now
I
I'm
have all
working
this
with
techno,
people.
right? Like I know these drills and I can tell you what muscle that is, but I don't know how to do this, you know? So yeah, I think a certification can have a good or it can be a really good idea. I don't think it's necessary. I certainly don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
necessary to keep up with it, because it doesn't really do much for you. Um, and I think what is important is that you read and you read and you read and you learn, and you find people who are doing uh, a really good job at what you're wanting to do, and you just read everything they put out. You study yourself and your clients, and what gets results and what doesn't, and just kind of this constant student. And I think that's what, as far as personal trainers go, I think that's what makes a really qualified coach, is someone who is just continually learning. Someone
Yeah.
who can say, 2 years ago, oh, man, I think what I was doing then was garbage. And in 2 years from now, the way I'm doing things, be like, wow, I'm glad I'm not doing it that way anymore. Kind of this continual student of growing and learning. That kind
Yeah. And so as far as personal training, there's a
of
number of
thing.
certifications out there. I
Mhm,
think there's a few that really stand out, that I'm familiar with anyway. There's ACE, the American College of Exercise.
mhm,
There's what do you have? There's ACSM. There's American College of Sports Medicine. There's the NSCA, National
mhm,
Strength and Conditioning Association,
mhm.
and you have NASM. Yeah,
NASM, yeah. There's also a CSCS, which is that's kind of the cream of the crop for personal trainers. Um,
that's the strength and condition certified strength and
Certified strength
conditioning
and
coach
conditioning
and
specialist.
conditioning.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so that's
yeah.
through the NSCA.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of as far as I'm concerned, sort of like the cream of the
the
crop
top.
certification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and don't get lost in all the acronyms, you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
if you ask somebody what are your credentials or what's your, I mean, hopefully they have it on their website or
Mm-hmm.
their business card, and you can just Google that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would probably put in like ACSM, comma, personal training, and just
Yeah.
Google that, and then read about what that credential means.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I think we're highlighting all this is so you can actually kind of advocate for yourself a little bit and know what the background is that person
Right.
has.
Right. Well, and I mean, at the same time, you can become a certified personal trainer in an afternoon. There are
Yeah.
certifications out there. It's like $30 and an hour, and now you're a personal trainer. And there's no governing body for personal trainers for like regulations or anything like that. And it's kind of like the Wild West, you know. And so it's it can be really tricky to kind of know who's qualified and who's not. But at the same
Hmm.
time, it's kind of like a doctor. You may go to a doctor who's an MD, and I've been to some doctors that are terrible doctors, and just because they went through medical school doesn't mean they're going to do a good job at it, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and then, not that I'm comparing personal trainers to doctors, but same thing. It's like you may have someone who got an afternoon certification and is fantastic, you know.
Yeah.
We have someone that got the CSCS kind of cream of the crop, and they're a disaster. You know,
Yeah.
kind of a strange place.
And I think it's important. We'll talk about this a little bit too, like personality matchups
Hmm.
and different approaches. The certification is probably, I think, a logical starting point. Just
Yep.
knowing what the training background is, the
Yep.
the expertise of the individual. Um, but I also think it's important to know what other complementary experience or certifications that person has. So some personal trainers might be really great at like helping somebody, strengthen post injury or
Hmm.
something. Other personal trainers are really good at just like building huge,
Hmm.
um, huge muscles and
Hmm.
helping people with growth. Other people are really good at like a certain age group, so they work with
Right.
elderly or they work with middle-aged sedentary individuals. So kind of
Yeah.
getting a feel for like what clientele. I
Hmm.
think because there are definitely different niche markets,
Oh, for sure.
and
Yeah.
just to highlight something that I think is really cool with what you have going on with your own um, ex- expertise is that you have a background in social work.
Right. Yeah.
And to me, that's probably what I mean, I'm guessing probably really helped you start working with people, how you say like,
Hmm.
oh, geez, I wasn't really, I wasn't really prepared to actually sit down with a client and get this going.
Right,
Um, but the fact that you have a person-centered background
right,
is really valuable.
right. Well, and for me, like I mean, I'm not a gym rat. I never have been. I was a maybe average athlete in high school, probably a little bit below, just okay, good enough to make the team, and that's about it. So I'm not someone who is like super interested in, hitting the gym 6 days a week and meatheady mentality. What I love is helping people, and I love being a part of people being healthier and successful and meeting their goals and that kind of stuff. And this is just kind of the avenue I found to do that in. Because I was a social worker, worked in a few different mental health hospitals. And I love that aspect. I kind of burn out on that and was like, okay, so how do I do this in a different way? And I found this, and it's not, I'm not passionate about, well, I wouldn't say I'm not passionate about strength training, because I am. I think I see so many benefits for it, but it's not like I'm just like, the gym, yes, like I'm not a personal trainer that you would think of when you think of personal trainer, stereotypical at all. It's just sort of the way I've found to kind of help people,
Mhm.
because that's what I like to do, you know.
I think that's a good point because people might hear the phrase personal trainer, or they might think hiring a trainer in a gym means I'm going to get this type of person or this type of
Hmm.
personality. And some people I think are really intimidated by that because they are
Sure.
not interested in doing the, super involved weightlifting or, really high intensity cardio, or, they're
Hmm.
probably scared of hiring a trainer because of that aspect. So
Sure.
I hope this discussion helps people realize that there are so many different types of personalities and expertise, I
Hmm.
guess, complements that go along with a certification as a personal trainer. So again, we'll kind of move forward to like personality and what kinds of
Yeah.
questions to ask.
Yeah.
Um, so I often get asked, what's the difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist? Um, and it's not an easy answer. Basically, well, let me back up. Registered dietitian, okay, the credential of RD was changed a few years ago to RDN, registered dietitian nutritionist. It's
Okay.
so confusing because people for the longest time, what RDs would do is kind of fight the whole being called a nutritionist, because we're like,
Right.
we're not nutritionists, we're registered dietitians,
Yeah.
grr. But we suddenly realized like this nutritionist is a very relatable word
Sure.
for everybody. You hear the word nutritionist, you automatically think, oh yeah, they know a lot about nutrition. So what the registered dietitian population did was decide we are going to call ourselves registered dietitian nutritionists, because nutritionist is like an umbrella term that
Sure.
encompasses basically anybody who has an expertise in nutrition,
Hmm.
but there's definitely a hierarchy within that.
Hmm.
So all registered dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are registered dietitians.
It's a square rectangle thing.
Exactly. Very good. So, for those of you who hated geometry, sorry, but they're still scratching their heads. What?
Yeah.
So, a registered dietitian has to go through an accreditation process that includes at least a 4-year uh, bachelor's degree. And we are required to undergo specific number of hours in various aspects of health and nutrition and food service. So some of my practical experience was in hospitals and in clinical settings with very sick populations and very specific dietary needs, tube feedings, IV feedings, which we call TPN, all of this stuff, very like clinical medical based. I also did a lot of community service things. So working in schools, working with healthy populations, doing, like my job at WIC. That's a very
Mhm.
dietitian centric kind of setting. We
Right.
did food service stuff. So like catering gigs and working in commercial kitchens and chopping 1,000 chicken breasts or working in the dish room. So doing those kinds of food service activities that you
Right.
wouldn't necessarily think a registered dietitian needs to know how to do those.
Hmm.
But the point was, if you are ever going to be running a kitchen someday, or you're ever going to be inspecting a kitchen someday, you need
Hmm.
to have worked in all of these different aspects of food service in order to
Right.
understand, the different
Right.
considerations of each. So not only that, we get management training, we get professional development training, we have not just those practicum hours, but then a ton of, just the schoolwork and the
Hmm.
projects. And it's all overseen by the governing body, which is the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Hmm.
And then, as you mentioned, continuing education training. So once we go through all of the schooling, we sit for the exam, we have to pass the exam, and then we have to re-up our certification every 4 years. And
Hmm.
so we will be, or 5, I guess. So we will be doing continuing education activities, whether that is
Right.
attending conferences or continuing our schooling in a master's degree or something like that. Or,
Hmm.
we can read articles and attend webinars. And there's a 1,000 ways you can get those continuing ed credits. But
Hmm.
explaining all this, I hope illustrates the very rigorous process that registered dietitians have to go through in order to get that credential.
Right.
And then some states license us, like in Idaho, I'm licensed under the Board of Medicine,
Hmm.
which gives me an additional checkpoint to make sure
Hmm.
that I have met all of these, requirements.
Right.
So when I think of registered dietitians, we are we thrive on networking with each other. I think we have a very strong community in terms of sharing ideas and sharing resources and helping each other be our best at our jobs.
Hmm.
So that's something that I've really enjoyed about my career, is that I never feel like I'm just completely alone in this. I always have a network to reach out to. And I know that those other registered dietitians have had a very similar schooling to me. And so we all automatically have this relatable kind of, you know, um,
Yeah.
interaction. So
Right.
um, now on the flip side, a nutritionist, I mean, who knows what kind
Hmm.
of credential they got, what kinds of requirements. Um, I will say that I have met people who have a nutrition certification, such as yourself,
Right.
who who really have a great grasp on the many aspects of nutrition. Something I didn't mention in the schooling is also cultural and
Hmm.
emotional and psychological. Um, those helping and counseling skills that come in to play.
Right.
So I have met several people that are not registered dietitians and know a lot about nutrition and are really wonderful to work with.
Hmm.
So that's not to say anybody who's not a registered dietitian, don't trust
Right.
them.
Right.
This is more like you need to dig a little deeper, I think, with anybody that you're looking for to help with nutrition. And one case in point is a registered dietitian here in town years ago. She had found this online group that was basically you could sign up for a certification online. And so she signed up her dog for a certification as a nutritionist through this website and got it. So Barkley or whatever ended
Yeah.
ended up being the nutritionist. So just to illustrate that you just don't know if somebody
Hmm.
puts something like certified nutritionist behind their name, you can't be sure what exactly did they do to get that.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
ask some questions and investigate a little bit.
Yeah. And it's good. I mean, I think with anything, like, I mean, if you see someone that is a registered dietitian, they've gone through a rigorous process, right? If you see that someone has something like nutritionist or nutritional coach or something like that,
Mhm.
you don't know that. you know.
Right.
And that's not to say that everyone who's gone through the dietitian process is going to be good at it, because like in every
Mhm.
field, there are people who aren't, but you know that there's been a very rigorous process to get there. Other, nutritionists, nutritional certification, nutrition coach, whatever, you don't know that, you know. And so I think it's a good idea, again, to do a little bit of digging. Like, okay, so hey, you say you're a nutritional coach. Who are you certified through? And let me check this company out a little bit, to kind of see what they're about. I got certified through Precision Nutrition, who is, in my opinion, the best out there as far as becoming like a nutritional coach. Um, and even as good as it is, it's not a dietitian. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's not at all. Yeah, I can help you with some nutrition stuff and habit change and that kind of thing. But there are a lot of intricacies of how nutrition impacts the body and how the processes work that, some people really need to be addressed, that I can't do. It's also the reason, and I think this is important to throw out there, that, unless you are a registered dietitian, you cannot write meal plans. Actually illegal. You cannot do it. So if you have, your little, personal trainer at the gym who's, been doing it for 2 months and is like, "Oh, write your meal plans," that's incredibly inappropriate. It's just not. It's one, it's not legal. Two, they don't have the expertise. Three, it's way out of scope for them. It's not a good idea. So to me, that's always a red flag when you have a personal trainer who's talking about meal plans. I think they often have good intentions and maybe don't realize it, that they're out of scope or that it's illegal. But that should be a red flag for me.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up because people probably look at food as being non-prescriptive, right? Like you just go to the grocery store and buy the food you need.
Right.
So they probably think it's harmless for somebody to share
Hmm.
a meal plan or to give them guidance in that way. Um, in some ways, sure, it could be
Right.
considered harmless because you have
Hmm.
safeguards in place in terms of like your own hunger cues and
Hmm.
your ability to kind of gauge what kinds of foods you might need. And I will say that when I've had clients come to me and they say, "Oh, I worked with a," sometimes they say a dietitian,
Sure.
and I'll listen a little more and I'll say, "So was this person a registered dietitian?" And they'll kind of be like, "Oh, well, I don't really know," and come to find out they were not.
Sure.
um, but I've seen some quote meal plans that I was just like, this is what they gave you?
Hmm.
I mean, literally just, okay, you have a protein shake in the morning
Hmm.
with like a smoothie with some spinach in it. And then you
Hmm.
have chicken, broccoli,
Hmm.
brown rice
Yep.
for lunch. And then you have chicken, broccoli. You might have another protein shake in the afternoon and then
Hmm.
chicken, broccoli, and sweet potato for dinner. So,
Right.
oh boy, we got some variety in there:
Right.
broccoli, brown rice,
Yep.
or broccoli, sweet potato.
Yeah.
Um, and to me, that's just an insult to nutrition professionals everywhere because it completely disregards a very important aspect of nutrition, which
Hmm.
is, well, several aspects really: your budget, your cooking ability, your
Hmm.
likes and dislikes. what
Hmm.
what kinds of foods do you like? Maybe food intolerances,
Hmm.
um, maybe your cultural or family considerations. There's so many different aspects that are just very deeply ingrained in
Yeah.
not only my education but just my career path as a dietitian that
Mm-hmm.
um, I think they get overlooked, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're kind of using that, the personal trainer giving meal plan kind of scenario. That's a very common one for people just to look at. Oh, well, it's as simple as throwing nutrients at the person and just eat
Right.
these foods with these nutrients.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, even just like medical issues and diseases and medications, that like nutrition impacts this stuff,
mm,
and you could easily find yourself in a position where you are doing harm with your simple meal plans, either medically, physically, or even emotionally. And
yeah.
that's an important piece too. I think it's zero data on this, totally speculation, but I think I'm right. Uh, I think there are a lot of personal trainers who prescribe meal plans that absolutely reinforce eating disorders, body dysmorphia, that kind of stuff. and they're just actively doing harm, without realizing it, you know?
That's a very, um, Michael, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's a very important and underappreciated impact
Mhm,
that health professionals have
mhm,
on people, is the psychological impact. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of it is unintentional.
yeah.
It's an unintended consequence
Sure, absolutely,
of the profession.
100%.
Um, and not every client is going to be forthcoming with that
Mhm,
kind of information, that they have
mhm,
struggled with this, or even that they realize that some of their eating habits are considered disordered. Now, somebody who has had even a glimpse of the proper training and background would know some questions to ask and some things to look for. I've
mhm,
had dietitians refer other clients to me saying, like, I think there's more going on here, and they're maybe not quite comfortable delving into disordered eating and other things. I'm trained to do so, and I'm comfortable with that, and so I will take on that kind of client. But I think you're exactly right. There's kind of this surface. Um, I don't even want to call it assessment, because I don't know. That sounds almost like too. Giving the benefit of the doubt there. I don't even
right.
know if there's a proper assessment done.
I don't think there
And
usually is, Erin.
yeah,
I think it's
in a
just,
lot
here
of
you go.
cases,
I'll write you a meal plan. Here you go.
this is how you do it.
I don't
Yeah.
know about your medical history. I don't know about, your where you've been and where you're going. I don't ask about any diseases or any medication. Nothing. It's just, here's your meal plan.
Yeah.
That's what I have seen in person 99% of the time, you know.
And this is a good segue into the conversations to have, I think, with a coach or a fitness or nutrition professional, um, before you hire them, while you're
Mhm.
on the look and while you're considering this. You have to, first of all, kind of sit with yourself a little bit and understand, what is it I'm wanting to get out of this.
Mhm.
Some people, like Michael and I have said, I think in almost every episode, that people come to us usually seeking weight loss or
Right.
some version of that,
Right.
improving their fitness. That's cool. Talk to us about it.
Mhm.
But also think about, how do you want to feel going through this
Mhm.
program? What are really important things that you have going on in your life that are non-negotiable? Do you have pizza night with your family? Do you
Mhm.
have, um, busy evenings, so you can't do a 2-a-day kind of workout, or you can't do food prep all the time? What are some things that are very practical, but then
Mhm.
also maybe be honest with yourself on some of the emotional and psychological things that could be impacting maybe past attempts, or your
Mhm.
history with food, your history with exercise, and
Mhm.
just be honest with that person when you talk to them. And trust me when I say, it's perfectly okay to inquire and talk with somebody and decide they're not the one for me, and keep
Mhm.
looking, because there are 1,000 out there and there's one
Yep.
for you.
Yep, exactly. In fact, I've started saying that even when people initially contact me, like, hey, let's hop on the phone and see if we're a good fit,
Yes,
you
exactly.
know, because you know what? Maybe I don't want to work with you. That's possible, right?
You're
But at the
such a
same
jerk.
time, but at the same time, maybe you don't want to work with me. And that's okay. I long ago gave up the idea that I'm the best coach for everybody. Long ago,
Right,
because I'm
right.
not, and I think that's probably more personality than anything. Like, if you're going to work with a coach, you got to have some sort of, like, you want to click with them on a personality level. You want to enjoy that person. You want to feel like that person's being genuine and sincere with you. You want to feel like that person listens to you. You got to have that, because I think too often we take, like, weight loss or getting healthy or that kind of stuff, and we make it formulaic, you know, and it's just like, okay, I just need someone to tell me to tick these boxes and how exactly to tick them, and then I'm going to be fine. And that, like, doesn't even begin to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much beneath that has to be understood and addressed and accounted for, that really goes into being successful and having a successful experience with a coach, and I think, going back to the meal plans, that's the approach I think a lot of trainers or nutritionists or whatever take. And I agree with you. I think it is a slap in the face of what you do as far as a meal plan, because it's not a meal plan. It's just like, here's the food you get to eat.
It's the
That's it. Like there's no plan. It's the same thing you gave to the last person. You know
it's
what I
the
mean?
Windex effect.
What's that? I don't know the
Have
Windex
you
effect.
have you have you seen my big fat Greek wedding?
No.
No, that's a no. The dad, so the oh my gosh, I can't remember the main actress's name in the center of the movie, but her dad, she comes from
Hmm.
this big Greek family. Her dad believes that Windex basically cures everything, fixes everything. So it
I've heard
shows him
that.
throughout the movie spraying Windex like on his arm or like whatever, like he, I don't know, bumps his arm or he's like at the
Yeah.
dinner table just spraying Windex on his body because it's like the cure all, it fixes everything.
Nice.
So back to your point, little off topic, but I just think like the Windex, I mean, it's so random, but that's what a lot of people end up doing
Yep.
that's exactly what you're describing is this like kind of this one size fits all approach. And oh, this is the thing, chicken broccoli rice or chicken broccoli, whatever. I
Hmm.
don't even know where that came from, but that's the thing.
Hmm.
And this is what works for everybody because it's super simple. You can control the macros, you can control the calories so easily, and you don't have to put any thought into it as a professional.
Nope.
I mean, geez, you just throw it out there to anybody
It's
who
real
comes your
simple.
way and you
Yeah.
say, like, you might adjust portions a little bit because you think they need more calories, which we could get into the whole calorie counting business
Hmm.
and why that I'd probably run in the other direction if somebody's like super rigid on that.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the Windex effect is thinking that like this one size fits all and this is the cure all for everybody.
Right. Well, I think what we see a lot is that people assume that's the way, like a new coach will assume that's the way to do it because that's what they did. And they've been quote unquote in shape for 2 months now doing this thing. They haven't had sustainability yet. And I really like this and I want to help other people. And so the only knowledge I have is what I did, even though I don't know if it's sustainable because it just happened. Like I see this a lot. I see a lot of people become trainers who just like barely got in shape. You know what I mean? Like barely met their goals, or and I use in shape because that's what people use, um, that term. But they just met their goals and they haven't done it with any kind of longevity, you know. And all they know is what they know. All they know is what they did. And so then that must be the thing that I now have to prescribe to other people. And then when people inevitably can't do it because it sucks, and eating boiled chicken every day. I mean, I don't want to do one boiled chicken. God, I mean, ugh,
Yuck.
really? And maybe it's like in a casserole or something, but like by itself, really? You're telling people who are like working 40, 50 hours a week, that have 3 kids and, all this stuff that they have to eat boiled chicken, you know? Oh, and here's the other thing, right? Here's the other thing is I guarantee these meal plans do not take into any kind of consideration if they have kids to cook for. So now they have to do three,
2 or
three,
3. Yeah.
6 meals a day, right? Because they have to do theirs. They have to do the ones for their kids and the family, right? This is a problem. And so then when they inevitably can't hack it, the coach is faced with this dilemma of like, okay, so is it on me that I don't know how to do this well? I don't know how to write meal plans in a way that people can be successful and long term? Or is it that they just can't hack it and they just need to try harder?
Oh
And guess
boy.
what
And
they
you know
pick?
where that leads.
Guess what they pick? Well, you just need to try harder. You just come on, suck it up. Let's do it. Come on. And then there enters the whole stereotypical personal trainer approach of just like, I'm gonna shame you into this. I'm gonna, make it, well, you've just got to be stronger. You've just got to try harder. You've just got to do better.
Yeah.
When really the fault is on the trainer, the person prescribing this. you know, and that's something I've seen a whole lot.
Yeah, which is, I think, why I found our first conversation at your wedding so refreshing because you had an approach that was very person centered. Instead of thinking like I just know the right way to do this and
Hmm.
this is the way I approach all clients, um or even this is the way I approach all, middle-aged female clients. This is the
Right.
way I approach all 20-year-old male clients. This is the
Right.
way I approach, whatever. um Really just listening to the person and finding that supportive role that you can play. And that's how I think of my job. I mean, yes, my
Hmm.
job includes education to the individual, and people have questions. They want to know, like, what do you think of this yogurt or that yogurt? What do you think of, intermittent fasting and all that stuff? So yes, the education piece is there, but I really think my job at its base level is being kind of like a tour guide.
Right.
Okay, so treat the client as the expert in their own lives. What are they after? Like, what do you want to accomplish with this? How do you want to feel going through this? What kinds of things work for you? And I guarantee you that no nutrition plan or template or guidance that I give is exactly the same. It just
Hmm.
isn't. And that's just how I I mean, I want people to know that I am here for you and you are an individual. And yes, there are a lot of similarities. I mean, nutrition can be simplified,
Hmm.
really. I mean, with regards to the types of foods and how often we eat, we
Hmm.
can simplify that and give some very broad recommendations. At the same time, when I'm working with a client one on one, I really want to listen and hear what are the individual needs I'm seeing here. And you brought up a good point, like with a family, how many
Hmm.
clients have I had come to me that have worked with a nutritionist or a trainer or whomever, a coach in the past? And they're like, well, I got tired of making so many different meals
Yep.
for everybody.
100%. Yep.
And I'm
All
like,
the time.
why would you have to do that?
Why are you doing that?
Kids need to eat the same kind of nutritious food that
Yeah.
adults do, and
Well,
vice
because my
versa.
coach
Like,
gave me a plan that was only this, and my kids aren't.
yeah,
It's like, holy
yeah,
crap. Yep.
yeah. So have
Yeah.
those conversations, people, and don't be afraid to ask. Like, maybe for an example of, have you worked with somebody my age with my kinds of goals that's, looking for the
Hmm.
same kinds of results? Have you worked with somebody like this, and what was your approach? Um, And something you said earlier that made me think of my own journey finding a triathlon coach, um, that I'd like to share because I took it very seriously. Being kind of in the coaching business myself, I had worked with a coach for 5 years, um, had a really great working relationship with him, but reached a point where I just felt like, okay, I've maybe got like a couple years left in the sport, and I
Hmm.
feel like maybe there's some untapped ideas. And that's the other thing, you guys, is working with different professionals. There will be different approaches,
Hmm.
um, that is worth investigating. Just
Hmm.
because it doesn't mean things have to be wrong with your current trainer or, you know, nutrition coach or whoever, that you have to go find somebody better. It just might be
Right.
different.
Right.
So I decided I needed something different. And I really had in my head, because I have a sports science background, I wanted somebody with like the nitty gritty scientific ex phys background that could just geek
Right.
out and talk to me on nerd level, with with exercise physiology.
This could nerd out on the
Oh,
cramp cycle.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's talk about the different, glycogen pathways and all that
Yeah.
super geeky stuff. And so I dove in, I started networking and asking people. I mean, I had a pretty good grasp on some coaches that I wanted to pursue, because I had been in professional racing for so long. And I reached out to seven different, 7 or 8 different coaches. I ended up having interviews with, phone interviews with multiple coaches.
Hmm.
I sought out advice from other professional triathletes. I mean, you don't have to go through this whole rigorous process, you guys, but just letting you know, this is what it took at my level to
Hmm.
actually vet out a good coach. And
Hmm.
here's what it came down to. I had a final four that I sat Matt down and gave him a beer and said, we're going to decide this tonight. We've got to figure out a coach. and you're going to help me because he knows me better than anybody, right?
Yeah.
So personality wise, he was a really good input for me. And it came down to a coach that was recommended by a friend that I had actually met several years earlier as an age grouper. It was one of her final races as a professional triathlete. And it was one of my first, like, kind of big races that I was really prepared for and I had big goals for as an age grouper. And I met her at a party with my friends, and she was just so like down to earth, easy to talk to. We totally like just hit it off, and I felt like I could actually be friends with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of this there's this sense of when you're an age grouper and you want to like have a really great performance or you have goals and you meet a pro, you're kind of starstruck a little bit, and you're like,
Sure.
oh, a pro,
Sure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I had a great conversation with her. We became Facebook friends, and I kind of followed her Facebook posts and whatever. It sounds familiar, right, Michael? Like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you and I.
Yeah.
Um, and when I came down to decision time and I was telling Matt, this is the different, it was between my coach that I ended up choosing, her name's Marilyn Chakota. She lives in Arizona, fabulous triathlon coach, if anybody is listening. I decided between her and then somebody who had like a really strong, very geeky and data driven scientific kind of
Mm-hmm.
background and approach. And I just said, Matt, that saying, you might forget what somebody says, but you'll never forget how they made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
That was my impression with Marilyn years before. I mean, I think it was like 7 years before. So,
Mm. Wow.
and I told her that story, and she totally remembered, our first meeting, and we both just, of course, we're, now friends, and we became friends through the coaching process too. But I just remembered that initial conversation we had. Who knew that it would be basically her interview to coach me,
Right.
7 years down the road. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome. So what are some red flags for you? Like or other things, like if we're looking at, because I mean, honestly, social media is kind of, most coaches kind of calling card. It's their advertisement. It's, that kind of thing. Which I think it's important, and maybe we'll get into this a little bit more later, but my social media pages have on them what I want to put on them. I'm in 100% control of what's on there, right? And so when you're looking at people's social media pages, I think it's important to remember that this is what they're wanting to broadcast. This is what they're choosing to put out in the world. And so just having that filter, I think, is really important, because when someone is like a quote unquote coach, right, or an influencer or whatever, and they love helping people, but what they put out into the world is, dozens and dozens and dozens of, pictures of them showing off their six pack or bending over in front of the camera to show off their butt. Like, how does this help me? Right? How does this help me? How does this help me decide if you're a good coach or not? How does this tell me you're interested in helping me? Because it really seems like this is about you,
Yeah.
you
I,
know?
I keep thinking about the Dumb and Dumber scene where he's like, I'm going to hang at the bar and put out the vibe. And he pulls up his blue tux and shows his butt, or orange. I guess he's in the orange tux. Jim Carrey shows
Yeah.
his butt. He's bending over, trying to really put out that vibe. I'm with
Yeah.
you. I will get a pretty good impression based on somebody's social media presence and the kinds of things that they put out there. I will definitely look for any conflicts of interest.
Hmm.
Meaning, are you trying to sell
Yep.
supplements?
Yep.
Are you
Same
trying to
with
sell a
mine.
product?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I feel very fortunate that I'm in the business of basically selling food.
Right.
So, I'm pretty, upfront with any relationships I have with different food industries, or, if I have a sponsorship with a sports nutrition company or something. And I am very cognizant that that does not drive my messaging to people, and that is very transparent from the beginning. And you're right. Just looking at the presence that somebody
Mm-hmm.
has. And I think if somebody is very focused on results, like showing this before and after thing,
Right.
I think it's a very different promotion of the process
Mm-hmm.
versus promotion of the outcome and results
Mm-hmm.
driven sort of thing. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
So it's kind of like you described, helping people is really important to you, like the process of helping people. And uh, helping people is a process. It's not like an
Right.
outcome because
Right.
it's continual,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I think you can kind of suss that out too,
Mm-hmm.
and also know that people who are really um, spouting these either quick body changes or quick outcomes or really dramatic outcomes, um, beware that maybe the methods are not necessarily um, a good holistic fit for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Right. Well, and I think a couple things. I want to say something about products in a sec, but about before and after pictures. Like I share them sometimes, but I'm also conscious about how much I do, because I think when that's all they're sharing is like the result, the result, the result, is I think they're really fostering and encouraging this idea that it's that once you get to the goal, like that's the end, and that's the end of the process, and
Yeah.
it's not. And I think it really encourages this really unhealthy kind of thinking and detrimental kind of thinking, because we often don't think about like, okay, once I do get to X, well then I'm just good, I'm there. And it's like, no, you still have to maintain that forever, for the rest of your life. Like the process isn't over, the process has barely started. And not that you didn't work hard to get there, but the process isn't over. And I feel like a lot of times when you see this like before and afters, it kind of encourages this like, okay, it's this little window slice of your life, and you get here and you're good, you
There's a
know,
beginning and end.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how you get there, just get there so you can have the before and after, you
Mm,
know, and it doesn't take into, mental health and emotional health and sustainability and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying that if someone shares those a lot that that's what they're doing, but to me it is something that makes me go, okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about this. It gives me
yes.
pause for sure. And then going back to products, like, I know of some coaches that I respect the hell out of, and they sell products, but they're their own products. They're training programs, they're, this kind of stuff. And to me, that's very different than if a coach or a trainer is selling like Herbalife or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
because I think when someone is selling, Shakeology or, one of those things, well, now I have a financial interest in you buying this thing,
Yes.
right? And if I say I believe in this thing, well, now I feel compelled for it to be appropriate for everyone, whether or not it is. And now I kind of have to talk you into this thing because that's how I make my money. And there's this really sticky kind of moral conundrum I think people find themselves in. And it's the reason I first got approached with selling Mona V, or I don't know, one of
Right.
those super
Right.
juices. And I've been approached to sell stuff a lot. And even early on, like I think the first time I got approached, I was about 3 years into training. And I just told them, I said, I have zero interest in selling a product because I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm conflicted between financial gain and maybe not the best solution for you.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's what happens a lot of times when people are selling these sort of multi-level, or what do they call it,
Multi-level marketing.
yeah, multi-level marketing kind of
Yeah.
things,
MLM. Hmm.
MLM, yeah. It puts them in a position where they have to question, or they very well may have to question money or what's best, you know.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to what we were talking about, that whole one size fits all
Hmm.
approach
Yeah.
is, it doesn't mean that this product, that any of those products are, bad or inappropriate um, for the masses. It just means that those aren't necessarily the key,
Right.
or a necessity
Right.
to your success. And so just be aware of that, that if you do choose to work with somebody who has, hopefully they're very upfront about their affiliations or, the products that they push. But I have seen far too many people that, come to me with, oh, I saw a nutritionist. Okay. And these were the supplements that were recommended. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, what did they explain this? What led to this?
Hmm.
Um,
Is there a
and
reason
then
you can't get these with food?
right, right. And then it come to find out there was some kind of influence there
Hmm.
with the practitioner, whoever that was, who has a relationship with a company or whatever. So that's something just to be very aware of.
Hmm.
Um, and don't be afraid to ask those questions, and don't be afraid to follow your gut instinct with that. If you
Hmm.
feel pressured, I mean, it goes back to, kind of my conversation about choosing Marilyn as my triathlon coach. That first conversation I had with her was so natural and just felt so good, and I felt listened to and supported
Hmm.
in so many ways. If you have that conversation with a coach, then you can, I think that is probably one of the top priorities, is how that person makes you feel and help support you as an individual.
Right.
So if that person happens to be affiliated with a supplement company, if maybe they have some other methods that you're kind of questionable, maybe that's something you can work around. Maybe that's something
Hmm.
that you can just decline and say, you know what, I'm not
Right.
really interested in supplements, but I still want to work with you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I think it depends on how they approach that kind of thing too, because I think I don't know a lot about, like Herbalife or Shakeology or those kind of things, a little bit. And they may be appropriate for some people, or they may be beneficial for some people. They may be a good fit. I don't know. But I know that if, in my opinion, if a coach brings up those things in your first call, if a coach is like pushing these things initially, or honestly, even if a coach is um, selling those things online, like if that's part of their regular social media plan, is to let you know, hey, I've got this thing, I've got this thing, I've got this thing. It's not there, they are blatantly not taking into consideration whether or not it's appropriate for you. It's just, it's, I'm selling this and I need to make money, so it's appropriate for everyone. you
Mm-hmm.
know Now, if it's a situation where they were like, maybe after working together for a little bit, hey, I have this thing that I think might be beneficial to you because of X, Y, and Z and what we've talked about, and whatever. And what do you think about that? I think that's a very different situation than when someone is just sort of like, hey, everybody, I got this thing. Who wants to buy it?
Powder,
You
magic
know?
powder.
Yeah. And to me, when I see coaches posting and kind of pitching that kind of stuff, for me, it's a massive red flag, and it's a big turnoff for me, because
Yeah.
I feel like you're jaded. You have an extreme bias in what you're going to present to a client.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not to say that, you know, sometimes people truly believe in whatever supplement it worked for them.
Hmm.
They love the company. They know the owners or managers or whatever. And so they truly believe in what they are promoting. And that's fine. I mean, we all have things that we
Hmm.
believe in as fitness professionals and health professionals. I think what I hear you're saying, and I would agree with, is that just blatant promotion and belief that everybody should,
Right.
um, should buy into this or take this on. Or in some cases, that if you're working with me, this is going to be in your quote meal
Right.
plan, is to use these products.
So you got to buy
Um,
them.
yeah, so you got to buy them, and preferably buy them through me, so I get the
Right.
kickback.
Of course. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's an important one to look at
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I had a thought and I just lost it. I
Uh
forgot what
oh,
it was. It was something.
those
It
usually
was,
come back to you.
remember
They'll
that
come back.
one like several weeks
Oh
ago? It
yeah,
was like 10 minutes later and I was like, oh, I found it.
it'll come back.
Yeah, maybe.
Um, in the meantime,
Hmm.
just to wrap up, look at the credentials.
Mhm.
of the person. Ask the questions, where did they get their training or what's their
Mhm.
background? Um, you know, go with your gut instinct on that initial interview, and hopefully that person will offer to have a conversation with you before you commit to working with them.
Mhm.
Beware of the one size fits all
Mhm.
kind of approach, and
Mhm.
ask about specific cases. Or something I didn't mention that I went through is I asked for references
Yep.
of
I would
athletes that were.
100% give anyone references if they
Yep.
asked. Yep.
Yeah. So, ask for that kind of stuff. And then, don't be afraid to have those conversations about things that, maybe either make you feel uncomfortable or you're not interested in terms of products or, other services this person might offer.
Mhm.
Yeah. And know that there is a right fit out there for you.
Right.
Not all personal trainers or dietitians or health coaches are created equal, and there are a lot of different approaches out
Right.
there.
Right. And I would say too, this is what I was going to say earlier. I think it came back.
See,
Um,
see, it's magic.
so I think it's easy for people to assume that if someone is in the fitness field and they're the expert, and I feel like I should have to prove to you that I'm the expert. I don't think someone should assume that. And I think it's easy for people, oh, they're a personal trainer, so they're the expert. Well, you know what? They very well may not be. And I think it's on the coach or dietitian, whatever, that I feel like it's my responsibility in that first conversation, initial conversation, or even just with my social media stuff, to show repeatedly over and over and over, I'm an expert in this, you know, or I'm an authority in this, because a lot of people in this field aren't, you know, and I think it's listen to the way a coach talks, because a coach who works with people all the time and has these conversations all the time can communicate them really well and really efficiently. And when someone can't, that might be an indicator maybe they're not working with people, because I know for a fact there are a lot of influencers and coaches out there that are working with no one.
Yeah, they
No
just
one.
send out a buy my
Mhm.
document or my like
Yep.
plan that you can print out, and here you go.
Hundreds of thousands of followers because they have a physique that a lot of people want, and they bend over a lot and show cleavage or abs or whatever. I'm serious. I'm
I know
serious.
you are.
And
It
there's
makes
that
me
there's zero content. It's like if anything, they're an authority in taking selfies. You know what I mean? If anything, they're an authority at getting really tan.
Yeah, they're
You
good at
know?
lighting and camera angles and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's I think it's easy for us to see those things and go like, "Whoa, they must know what they're doing," you know?
Mhm.
And it's just not true. I think you have to just spend some time with anybody, whether it's on the phone or social media stuff, and just like, does this person actually seem like they know what they're talking about? Is this
Yeah.
person providing value to me on a regular basis? Is this person showing me that that they might be able to actually help me? Or are they just, being gross and, showing themselves off?
Showing some TNA on
Yeah,
Instagram.
exactly. And I think it's important to just don't assume that someone in this profession is any kind of authority at all.
Yeah.
Make them prove it to you, because I think a coach that's worth their while is happily going to do that.
And on that, one last thought is I definitely appreciate your sentiments that like it's on us as the professional to
Mm-hmm.
show that we are deserving of this job and working with
Mm-hmm.
you. And I look at working with anybody as a privilege. I'm continually flattered when people
Mm-hmm.
reach out and want to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think if you see or sense any immediate ego popping up or defensiveness popping up, if you do kind of question that or take that approach, like, oh, I want this person to kind of show me, I have questions about, question the hell out of me. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. I would really rather say, I don't really know the answer to that. Let me investigate it and I'll send you some information or I'll find the answer. Um, if you sense or hear any defensiveness or like disregard for your questions or your concerns on things,
Yeah.
that's that's an exit sign.
Yep.
for you.
100%.
So,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Now
So,
you know how to pick a health professional, right? Or a fitness nutrition person. Yeah.
so
You
good
guys got it.
luck.
Go
Yeah.
forth.
Don't go hire Barkley the nutritionist or whatever online. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Riley would be a great nutritionist. Maybe I
Yeah.
should sign him up. Yeah, he's so good at rest and recovery. Um, he plays with his food. I don't know if you know this. We have a food ball for him. They make these little cat food toys that I
Mm-hmm.
guess, because cats are hunters, it's important for them to like be stimulated to get their food.
Right.
So, um,
So he chases
he
the
has a
ball.
food ball. So he bats it around and it
That's
just
awesome.
drops kibble out on the floor and he chomp, chomp, crunch, crunch. Anyway,
That was kind of fun, actually.
I know. Maybe
Hmm,
you should try that.
I think I
You've still
should.
got a few hours of bachelorhood yet.
I know, right? Family comes home, I'm on my hands and
Uh,
knees,
with a
batting around a cat toy, eating off the
ball
floor.
with Cheetos in it. Like, what?
Hey, that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right. Meaning in the mundane.
Okay.
Do you
I
need time
think
to think about one?
no, but I went first last time, so maybe you go first this time.
uh, so on Saturday, was it Saturday? I rode my bike inside because the air quality was terrible
Right, because
around
you have the
here.
fires going on.
Yeah, it's better now,
Good.
thankfully, which I hope is an indication that maybe the fires are getting under control. But consequently, what happens when I just do a ride inside, I don't ride as long and it's kind of done early in the day. So then I had this whole rest of the day. And it was kind of too hot to like do any baking or cooking. And I just didn't have anything else on my agenda or anything else beckoning me to, get on a project or work, or I didn't want to work because I think
Right.
it's important for me to like, take a break from that.
Yeah.
Um, and I turned to Matt, I don't know, probably midway through the day, and I said, I'm kind of bored. And I don't know the last time I truly felt bored.
You don't
Like
seem like the type
really,
of person who gets bored very often.
I don't get bored often. I
Yeah.
do know how to relax. I do know how to just watch, TV,
Hmm.
or I do know how to read or take a nap occasionally.
I'm glad you know how to read.
I do. I
I don't know if
do.
you know this about me, but I can read.
Surprising. Yeah, surprising. Um, but I really had that just epiphany that like, man, I'm bored. And it's the first time in a long time that I've been bored.
Mhm,
So I think it's actually good for humans to get bored.
mhm,
Especially, we hear like kids with devices and different
mhm.
things, we're always looking for this instant kind of, gratification or entertainment. So I ended up going out into the garden and puttering around. I called my parents. I, hadn't chatted with them for a little while. So I called them, spent a couple hours just like collecting lettuce seeds because I let some of my lettuce plants go to seed. Came inside and made pesto from the fresh basil in the garden and
Nice.
just did like random. I listened to a couple podcasts. I just kind of like had this very ordinary feeling afternoon where really nothing needed to be done, but I ended up just accomplishing these small things that were out of the ordinary and very meaningful to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was my Saturday meeting in the mundane experience.
Nice. Awesome. I love those just kind of like puttering around days. Like you're not doing anything like grand, but you're still getting stuff done. You're productive, but it's at like a leisurely pace. And if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get done, it's not a big deal. And I love days
Yeah.
like that. Those are the best days.
Yeah, it was nice because by the time I had actually spent a few hours just like between the garden and calling my parents and puttering around the kitchen and whatever,
Mhm,
it kind of came time to start making dinner. And
mhm.
I had planned a dinner based on all these garden vegetables. And so that took some prep and some, so I exactly what you're saying, just this leisurely kind of okay, well, I have all this time. I'm going to appreciate it instead of whining about being bored.
Right.
you know, let's
Yeah.
find something to do.
Nice. Love it. Love it. For me, I feel like it fits. It wasn't like super mundane, but it was just one of those moments. Well, several moments. I'll just tell a story. So we had the hurricane coming, right? It was supposed to hit us Wednesday night. And so Wednesday day was just like a lot of prep. I'm boarding up the house. I'm bringing everything in from outside. I don't really know what I'm doing or how to prep well. I've never put these storm boards up in the windows, so I'm trying to figure that out. Um, and I have a neighbor next door. We have a lot of great neighbors on our block, but the one next door, um, he came over and helped me out, helped me get stuff hung up, and I helped him with some stuff. And later that evening, it was supposed to hit us around like 8 or 9, something like that. And about 7 o'clock, I get a call from him, and he's like, because both my back and front door were boarded up. He's like, "Hey, open your garage. I got something for you." And so I go out there, and he had made dinner and brought me dinner because he knew Kat and the girls were gone. He's like, "I know you're by yourself, so I brought you some dinner." And then the next day, after the storm did nothing here, he was helping me take some boards down. I was helping him with some stuff, and it was just this really strong reminder of me, like, man, a good neighbor is like a wonderful thing. Like someone who
Yes.
will just help you because you live next door to them, and they're a good person, and someone that you're happy to help, and someone who thinks, just keeps you in mind, like, "Hey, you're by yourself. I'll bring you dinner," because he had some family staying with him that was from where the
Oh,
hurricane
that's
was going to hit
cool.
a lot harder, and
Yeah.
they made a big dinner, and he's like, "Oh, I just brought you some." And it was just this really cool, you know, just reminder of like, man, a good neighbor is worth its weight in gold. Like it's so
Yeah.
valuable, and it was just kind of cool because we don't know him super well and just got to get to know him better. And, it's just kind of this cool little thing
Yeah.
before and after the hurricane of just neighborly stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be remembered
Oh yeah.
and to be thought of, and it's funny because the neighbors are not necessarily people that I mean, we see our neighbors a lot. We're very friendly with them. We love our neighbors, but they're not necessarily people that you always will have over to your house for
Right.
dinner
Right.
or spend time with them or
Right.
anything like that. But you see them a lot, and
Yeah.
like you're saying, having those people in your life that care and think of you, and
Hmm.
just have that kind of inclination to check
Yeah.
in or to offer help or to just be a supportive human.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It was nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm glad you didn't need all those boards.
Yeah. Me too.
Save
Yeah.
them for the next time, if there's a
Yep.
next time.
Oh, there'll probably be plenty of next times.
Yeah.
Hurricane season's just getting started, and we'll be here for a while. So
Oh boy. Okay, roll up your sleeves.
yeah, yeah, gotta get used to it.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We get
Mhm.
some really great feedback and comments, and every single one of them is appreciated. So
Mhm.
thank you,
Yep.
and keep them coming.
Mhm.
If you have topic requests or ideas, let us know. If you think this is a wonderful way to pass your time listening to us, please share with a friend.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, subscribe and drop us an email at middleish@gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you for listening and watching, everybody. Have a good week.
Okay, we'll catch you next time.